Hello, you guys, and welcome back. I am so excited to have Caroline Szustak on with us today. So Caroline actually edits the Full Plate of Pasta podcast. And the reason I really wanted to have her come on is for two reasons. One, I wanted to talk about the podcasting world because you guys loved our episode the other week about what I've learned launching a podcast and like the impact of the podcast and the financials of the podcast. Obviously, it's a very new podcast. We didn't have a lot of insight to provide you. But you guys love that episode because I did not know how many of you guys actually are interested in either adding a podcast to your brand or launching a podcast. So that was really incredible. So I wanted to get her perspective on like what's working in the podcasting world, how to get started, what editing looks like how to do that on a budget, because I know a lot of you guys don't have 20 or 30K to spend on like a full-blown production team. So she gives a lot of insights there. But I also asked Caroline a lot about her journey of getting started in the business world, because one of the biggest mistakes that you guys are making with a business is you're thinking more. You're thinking team, you're thinking a lot of systems. And Caroline's actually built an incredibly successful and also very profitable business by just leaning into the thing that she does best. She has a couple clients, she makes great money, she gets to travel the world. Her life is very simple. It's literally built the exact way she wants, but she's incredibly successful and happy with what she does. And so often when you guys are looking to start businesses, especially service-based, that should be simple and easy, you guys add so much complexity to that. So we talk a little bit about her journey, and then we transition to the actual podcast and what it looks like to launch and what her day-to-day looks like. And I think you guys are going to love this episode. So enjoy. Caroline, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks. I'm so excited.
Welcome. I literally just want to be like, isn't this funny that you're also going to edit this episode in the next week? So excited for Caroline to be on the podcast. Also, don't mind me, literally couldn't talk for last week. So Caroline sounds perfect, glowy, amazing, and I look like I haven't spray tanned in a week and my voice is off. But you know what? That's fucking okay. I had to have Caroline on the podcast to talk all about podcasting, marketing, how to create a brand. Like, she has literally completely changed my perspective on like what this podcast can be. And I really want to bring her expertise to Full Plate of Pasta. So I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Well, one, you look gorgeous, so don't even say anything. You look stunning.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and talk all about podcasting.
Okay, I do want to ask you like how you got into the podcast space, because I think a lot of the times like people think like content, like traditional media, posting on Instagram, that type of stuff. But obviously like podcasting has become a huge industry. I just saw an article. It's like $400 billion potential. I don't even know. It's just like literally insane what podcasting has done for brands. Like, did you always want to do podcasting? Did you fall into it? Like, can you give people a little bit of backgrounds on like how we got here?
Yeah, so it was totally by accident. I mean, I've always loved podcasts and listening to them, but it was very much not intentional. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. I was at a retreat where you were there, and a couple of our friends were there, and I was rooming with my friend Gabby, and I was just so burnt out. I was doing social media management full time, and I just like felt like I could not breathe. So we were going to bed one night, and this is gonna sound really bad, but I was like saying to Gabby, I was like, yeah, like sometimes I just wish I could get hit by a bus and go into a coma, and then I wouldn't have to work, and then I would wake up 2 years later and I could breathe. And she looked at me and she was like, Caroline, are you okay? That's not normal. And I was like, I know.
Normal.
And her reaction to that jarred me, because to me, I've just been thinking this way for so long because I was so burnt out. And then her reaction was like total shock. And I was like, oh, wait, maybe that's not normal. So anyways, I had a full-blown panic attack, rethinking my life. And the last day of the retreat, we were all sitting at dinner. You were there. And I was just kind of voicing to everyone, you know, like, I've been going through a lot. I feel really burnt out. I had this conversation with Gabby, and I was thinking about doing this and doing that. And then I threw out the word podcast. And you, alongside one other person, Naomi, who's incredible, you guys should check her out too as well. She was like, well, I need someone. And you were like, well, I need someone. And I was like, wait. I just said it. And you're like, no, like, we need someone. I mean, I have background in editing, so it wasn't far off, but I'd never touched a podcast before. And I mean, you just believed in the vision that I had and believed in me. And yeah, we signed on, and I've been working on your podcast ever since. And now I work full time in podcasting, have, you know, a full roster, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Oh my God. It's so crazy that was like, what, 7-8 months ago? Like, I'm kind of feels like a different world, because I feel like it's just so much has changed as an entrepreneur. Like, literally, you're just always evolving. You know, it's actually so fucking funny. This is like off topic, but I have to say it. as you were talking, you're like, I just want to like be hit by a bus and wake up 2 years later and everything will be fine. I was like, no, that wouldn't happen because you'd have like $100,000 in medical debt. What an indication that you live in Canada and I live in the US. That my first thought is like, you can't just be in a coma because you couldn't then afford your medical bills. I was just thinking about that because I'm like, no, you'd have all this medical debt. I forget you live
That's
in Canada.
so funny.
So that's not something.
Well,
like,
it's not
that's so,
funny,
like,
but not funny at
welcome
all.
to America. Okay, but you know what I actually find really interesting is a lot of times when people think business, they think they have to do everything in order to be successful. Like when you did social media, you did every part of social. So you had to like come up with the concepts. You had to obviously don't know everything you did, but like come up with the concept, come up with the captions, come up with the content, get the editing. Like you did the full blown kind of start to finish. And I think people forget that like, yes, there's value in that and people do want that, but there's also elements that are like the heaviest for them. And I think like podcasts, like your thing when you and I were talking was, I really just want to like take someone's thing and make it perfect. Like I want to do the tying of the bow. Like I want to put it together. I want to like bring it to life. I don't even know if you knew that was a possibility because I think your brain, I'm assuming, was if I don't do every piece of the puzzle, like that isn't valuable to people. And I think that that's actually a very good lesson for business owners, entrepreneurs, anyone is like own the thing that you're best at. And if that doesn't mean that you own every single piece of the puzzle, that's actually okay.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You have a zone of genius for a reason. If you have all your hands in one pot, you're not going to be able to focus all of your attention and energy on that one thing to really scale and grow it at the speed and the level in which you want it to. But when you have that one focus in your zone of genius, you can put all your attention and energy there. It's like having like 5 boyfriends. One of them is going to feel left out. One of them is going to feel like you. No, because
like
one of them is going to be like, well, I need your attention here and I need your attention here. You can't give your all to 5 people. You have to focus on one thing. So a lot of the times, especially in podcasting, when people start a podcast, they want to do it all themselves, right? They are hesitant or, you know, it seems like a really big jump to hire an editor right away. But at the same time, you can't focus and put your full energy into showing up for your audience, giving value, educating, creating a community, building a brand if you're also the editor and the strategist and the X and the X and the X. Stay in your zone of genius so that you can really, really get it to the level in which you want it to be at.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing I always say with like business coaches. I think business coaches like, I have to get marketing and sales and delivery and systems. And I'm like, yeah, fucking don't. Like you don't. And there's people who are really, really good at what they do and charge significantly more because they just own that. And people don't talk about that because again, people assume, and you guys know that I love simple business. People assume more is better. I actually think owning your thing is the best. I actually gave this example. I feel like you'll appreciate this, but I gave this example to a client the other day. I was like, pick 2 artists. And I said, one you love, one you hate. She, of course, picked Taylor Swift and Kanye West, of course. I was like, would you rather have one evening, $3,000, decent, amazing ticket to go see Taylor Swift? Or instead, I will give you $1 million worth, so like 50 concerts worth of Kanye West tickets. And she goes, I'd rather have Taylor Swift. You know, we always think that like quantity or more, or the more we can bring to the table is better. And I think like the thing that I noticed in you is you're like, I just don't like all these other pieces. This is where I thrive. And I was like, well, that's amazing because I have Lexi who can come and film and I have ideas and I have blah, blah, blah. She doesn't have the capacity to edit. And I literally was like, I'm the talent, which is so funny. I was like, I'm the talent. I want to record. I want Lexi to organize and then you can edit. And it like literally worked as this perfect little trifecta because first of all, I didn't want to spend $7,000 a month to have all these blah, blah, blah. Like I was like, I have someone, I have this. Like, it's just so crazy how sometimes we don't own just the thing that I think we're best at and the thing that we love. And I think the reason you felt so lost is you didn't maybe have confidence, or at the time you didn't even think it was possible to just literally zone into the thing that like that you loved. And now you're doing it full time. And now that's like you literally get to live in your zone of genius every single day.
Yeah, exactly. No, I did not know it was possible. And even building my business, there was a point where I was like, do I stay small or do I do agency route? But agency route didn't feel like me. It felt like at the time my only option because I didn't know there was another option. But I was like, I don't want to have my hands in so many people's businesses because I want to be able to give my all to the amount of clients that I have. Just like you said, like I have a smaller roster. I don't have an agency, but I have higher ticket. So it honestly is the same. It comes to the same result, but I get to focus on my clients way more intentionally and have more space and energy and time to do that.
Yeah, I think people would be really surprised to know how young you are. I also feel very old today, so maybe I'm just assuming that you're a lot younger, although I know how old you are. But I think people would be very surprised, like, know how young you are and like how much you've changed over the last couple of years. Can you talk a little bit about like your influence in starting a business and like kind of the phases that you've had in starting the business? Like obviously we see you now and I feel like you're like feeling so good editing, like you're traveling, you're doing like this incredible stuff, but your business has had a lot of phases. So can you give a little bit of background of your starting journey?
Oh, it's had so many phases. So right now I'm 25 and I started this when I was 21. I started with a TikTok job for $800 a month. And to me, that was like insane. I couldn't believe it. It's like $800 a month. This is amazing. Like I just felt
I'm
so good.
rich. I'm
I'm
rich.
rich. I remember telling my dad and he's like, 800? I'm like, 800, dad. It's 800. Like, how are you not excited about this? Yeah, I started with a little TikTok job and I had no idea that it would come to this point. Before I met Kate, who I had the job with, I didn't even know entrepreneurship on this level was possible. To me, it was like the entrepreneurs were these huge CEO, and honestly, the only ones I could think of were men. That's how sheltered and out of touch I was with this world. So when I could see someone build their life the way they wanted to, have the freedom they wanted to, be their own boss, it was like this whole world had opened up. It was incredible. Yeah, I started with a little job. And from there, honestly, it was messy action. I had an opportunity to work with someone for social media management. Was I ready? No. Was I scared shitless? Absolutely. But I did it. I just jumped in, messy action. I remember writing a caption for me, literally one caption would take, I'm not kidding, like 5 hours. I would get in my head, I would
Because you
cry,
probably overthought every single detail. Yeah.
everything. And because it felt like so much pressure at the time, I was like, I have this responsibility for this client that I've never had before. You know, when you're working for a job, the responsibility is not really on you when you're working for this big corporation. A lot of the times, you're like one little piece in like this huge puzzle. But when you have this one client and it's a direct deliverable, a direct result, you feel that pressure on such a high intensity. So yeah, it was so scary, but I just did it, messy action. And then from there, I proved myself. The other thing, my whole business has been referrals because I've worked my ass off. I've done so much free work for people, and I still do free work to this day for the main aspect of connection, proof of concept, networking, all of these things. And I've built my business on referrals just from taking action, messy action, jumping in before I was ready, facing the fear, doing it anyway. And it was the same thing with podcasting. I was not ready, but I jumped anyway. And now, 8 months later, all the growing pains are essentially gone and I'm living this reality. Whereas if I gave into that fear, I would not be here today. So it just kind of spiraled, got into social media management full time, had that burnout, you know, let go of a couple clients, and then just followed the path that kind of was in front of me, jumped in when I was scared, and now I'm here.
I love it. I'm curious, like in your pathway to scaling, one thing, and I know this about you, so obviously I have a different level of awareness than the audience who might not know you, but I think what's really impressive about you and the thing that I really appreciate is whenever I talk to you about growing your business, it's never been about like, I need more money or I just need to grow as big as possible. You're literally like, this is how many clients I want to serve because like that feels good. How can I make the numbers also feel good for me too? And you kind of leave it there. Have you ever had pressure to like grow really big, or were you always like, I just want to like keep it small and keep it maintainable? Because you even said like you didn't want to grow an agency. Like, did you feel pressure to follow suit of a lot of people, which is just like grow as big as possible? Or have you always just been like, I got this, like keep it small?
Yeah, no, I felt so much pressure because especially the people around me were doing so well. And at the time, hustle culture was like huge. So I was working till like 2 in the morning on my laptop, being like, grind, 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 scale, 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 hit that number, hit that number. I hit the highest number I had ever hit in sales monthly, and I was the most miserable. It just goes to show that, like, yeah, you can feel a lot of pressure, but it might not be for you. So, yeah, the agency route was a lot, especially because of fear of increasing prices. I was severely undercharging, severely. But I also thought, one, there's no way someone's going to pay that. Or two, I'm not worth it. There's a lot of mindset work you have to do because if you don't feel like you're worth a certain price that you are worth, and the hours correlating of like you're even undercharging for the hours, not necessarily worthwise, but like literal hours you're putting in, you're not even charging that. You're not going to be able to scale too. That's going to cap you. So there's so much that goes into it. And then once I realized it's like, I don't have to have an agency. I could have my core clients charge what I'm worth, charge high ticket, do that mindset work. All of that comes together. And that's okay. You don't need to have a 7-figure business. You don't need to have this huge empire if that's not what you want. And there are seasons I may decide in a couple years, yeah, I want to take it to the next step. But for right now, this feels really, really good and I'm comfortable. So yeah.
Yeah, I said on Instagram Live today, I said, entrepreneurship, I don't think people realize you basically start almost every day with a pretty much blank canvas. Like you can change your offer any day. You can change pricing any day. Like, because corporate is so structured, right? Like you have your job and you have your responsibilities and you have someone to respond to. And I think sometimes then when people transition out of that, then they're in entrepreneurship and they're like, but I don't like where I'm going, but like I have to keep doing it. It's like, who said that? Like you said that. You're the one literally like painting your day, like literally painting on the canvas, like what do you actually want? And I just think that that's really important that we have that conversation around you don't have to grow bigger to validate anything. I think sometimes people assume that the bigger you grow, the more successful, but the bigger you grow, also the more problems. And what I love about the way that you look at your business is this is how much money I want to make. This is the impact I want to create. And if I want to add it a little bit more, cool. And if not, I can just like live here. And it also is a really impressive way of looking at business because a lot of the times people add so much structure, they take themselves out of the part of the business that they want. It's kind of like the person that becomes a manager and they're like, I love the work. And then now I just manage people and they don't want to manage people. A lot of times when you scale, there becomes management, there becomes team members, there becomes moving parts, there becomes a lot more admin work. And honestly, I think a lot of people need to hear like me say this. And you also articulate the fact like this is how you look at it. It's like you can have a $10,000 or $20,000 per month business working 15, 20 hours a week, no team, 4 or 5 clients. Like that's a really good life. And I think like, yes, of course, especially in America, like inflation and everything else, like I know that a lot of people are like 100K is not a lot of money. 100K working the hours you want, the way you want, traveling the world, getting to live wherever you want. So you don't have to live somewhere that you don't want to because the job is there. Like that is a good life, And I guess that's not really a question, but like, I feel like you're really an example of that, of like, even if other people are around you chasing the more, you chased like the depth. You're like, I want like the 4 clients I can work with really closely. And like, that's important to me. So I just want to like articulate that to the audience. But I am curious if you could give us a little insight into obviously like what your day-to-day looks like, because your like job really is the stuff that you love. So if someone hired like an editor, can you explain like, what does an editor do? What does your process look like? Like, what does your actual like day-to-day look like? Because I know it changes a lot, but also like you literally live in this like little zone of like the shit that you love. And I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't felt this way about my job in a long time. I love it so much. I do have one social media management client who's an OG. I love her so much and I will never leave until she
Can't get
kicks me
rid of
out.
her. Have to work with her.
And
Yeah.
that feels really good to me because I get to focus in that area just for her and give her 100%. So that feels so amazing. And it also gives me some variation in like my week. So that's really nice. And then
Yeah.
yeah, for the editing, because I have that marketing and social strategy background, I honestly integrate a lot of that into the editing, which is really, really nice. So I have certain amount of episodes per week, which is just sitting it down and making sure those are cohesive and good. And then we get into the fun stuff, which is the social clips. So I create a certain amount of social clips for each episode. We do trailers, we do fun music, make it really like powerful and inspirational, some B-roll. So that's where my creative side really goes into it. And then, we also have like the mini captions and show notes and that kind of stuff. So I have some writing. So it feels really good to have these mini sections inside what I do that are different. Like I get to use my writing brain. I get to use my editing brain. I get to use my creative brain. I get a touch of social media management. So it still feels in the same realm. So I'm not doing too much. My hands aren't in too many hats because it all kind of correlates together, but I still get that variation and that flow in my week that keeps it fun and like exciting.
Yeah. It's like really fun because you actually do a part of the podcast that I think is really fun. And it's not my gift, so I can't do it, but I'm sure you like get to witness a lot of like funny things and behind the scenes of like editing literally the raw of the podcast. Can you talk a little bit about like the impact of podcasts? Because obviously it's a massive industry. I wish I would have fucking pulled up the article. That would have been smart of me to like actually give the stat that's like legitimate. I'll add that later.
Because I'm your editor, I can put it up right here.
That's why Caroline's here. But podcasting has obviously grown massively. And I think another thing that I've always used to struggle with is when I was like, I want to build a business, it was always like, let me offer a service because then you make money. Podcasting is kind of interesting because there's a lot of different ways to monetize, but it's not always immediate. There's like obviously the marketing and the visibility that can drive in clients. There's also the brand deals. There's also like
ad spend. So I think a lot of times people who don't think of business in that way and don't understand media in that way kind of miss the point. But you've probably seen a lot of financial impact, just life impact, brand impact with podcasting. Can you talk about like what you've seen and like just reasons that I think people need to really take podcasts seriously if they're looking to grow a brand these days?
Oh, it's huge, the impacts you can have. It's absolutely huge because you get to hit long form and short form in one go. Like it's absolutely incredible the amount of stuff that you can bring to people, the amount of education, the community, the conversations that are often behind the scenes that you get to show people now. You get to show people proof of concept of what you do and what's in your mind and really connect on that deeper level. It's just absolutely incredible. And a lot of it too is a space where you can get really, really vulnerable, raw, and real in a lot of a bigger way. Like when you're going on Instagram, or TikTok, you're creating these mini videos like 30 seconds. And yes, you can build trust and you can build authority in those ways, but imagine how much more trust you can build with a 40-minute episode of someone really listening to what's in your brain and what's on your heart and how you converse with people and what you're truly passionate about. There's so much there that you can tap into, and it's absolutely incredible. Yeah, I do feel like it's popping off. Like a lot of people are doing podcasting. I will say what's going to keep you different in the podcasting world, because obviously, again, there's so many. So what's going to make someone listen to yours over someone else's is really pushing that value for the listener. A lot of the times it's hard for people when they're podcasting to tell a story to relate to someone, but also make it valuable for the listener, because a lot of the time it's a story about you. So it's I language. This is what happened to me. But why is the listener there? What value are they getting? So we have to be really careful in how we structure these episodes. But if you're giving value and if you're giving education and if you're really connecting and making a point of intentionality to really create the episodes for the listener, you're going to get so much more of a result than you would if you didn't do that. So yeah, it's incredible space and it's blowing up for a reason.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you like what people do right and wrong in podcasts. So obviously that's a big one. They don't really understand like what the listener's looking for. They're just like, I enjoyed the conversation. Like it was a good conversation, but it's not really geared towards the listener. Can you talk about some podcasts that you love and why? Out of the ones that you listen to, what makes them great? Like what is unique about them? Why do you like them? Like what are they doing very well? Just so people can kind of go and maybe like get some inspo, because there's just so many podcasts out there. It's interesting when people say, oh my God, no one's ever talked about this before. I'm like, I'm sure someone has, but like it's just not visible. So like visibility is huge. But yeah, what podcasts are you listening to that you're like, they're fucking doing this right?
Yeah. Okay. I love this question. And don't hate me because I'm going to say a really popular one that people are like, "Ugh, okay." But listen, okay, Mel Robbins. And the reason why I say her is because before I got into podcasting, I would listen to her all the time.
Yeah.
After I started getting into podcasting and I really saw what it took, the strategy, all that kind of stuff, I listened to her episode and I was like, whoa. It was like I was listening to it from a whole different perspective of like, I see what she did there. I see why she said it that way. I see in the beginning, she touches on something at the end of the episode in the beginning saying, stay tuned because we're going to be talking about this in 20 minutes. Like that strategy is insane. And when you are someone who is an audience member who doesn't really know that back end strategy, that doesn't register to you, but it keeps you enticed and entertained and pulls you in at every single second. Whereas I listened to it then from an editing perspective and I was like, she is such a genius and no one even knows how much of a genius she is, or her marketing or her strategist, whoever is making
Yeah.
these calls. Incredible. So yeah, I would really listen to Mel Robbins from a strategy standpoint. Obviously, as an educational standpoint, her podcast is incredible. But as a strategy standpoint, the way she builds out her episodes, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. So good. So yeah, I would recommend hers for sure.
I also saw Diary of a CEO, even how far they spread the table from the guests that like for viewing purposes. There's actually a lot of technicality behind podcasts and like some of the small things they do. I think a lot of times people think you hop on and you just have the conversation. The conversation is the meat, but like it's kind of the same thing with anything, right? Like you can have amazing content, but if it doesn't capture you right away, people never watch it. If the lighting's not good, like all those little details actually makes kind of the same impact. It reminds me so much of sales. Like she's a salesperson. She's selling her book. She's selling herself. Like, I mean, the girl makes so much money, but in sales, like the goal is at the end of a conversation, someone's like, I don't even feel like I was being sold to, because they're doing the technical things, but the audience, the other person on the other end can't understand that. She does that so well. Even all of her clips, every fucking little mini clip of hers, I'm like, how'd they catch that? Like, how, it's because she literally goes into the episode knowing that they're going to cut those clips. I think a podcast that I've seen do that better and better, Skinny Confidential. I feel like they've gotten better from the media standpoint of like how they say things or ask questions is resonating more with like short form content. Are there any other ones that you like really, really love? Diary of a CEO is like my new favorite. So that was my shameless plug.
I will say to something that you said, absolutely. Once you start getting used to podcasting and implementing that strategy, you'll say things differently because you're like, I know this is going to get clipped. That's a huge one. And again, like we can't even get people to listen to or stay tuned into a 30-second video. That's hard for people's attention span to even watch for a 30-second video. So how are you going to get someone to watch 40 minutes to an hour? Like you have to really put
Yeah.
some strategy behind that. So yeah, I'll just second that. And then other podcasts that I really love, it's like an Apple podcast and he interviews artists like Shawn Mendes, Selena Gomez, like all these artists. It's with Zane Lowe. I love his because he's not scared to get personal and ask really deep and intentional questions. That's the other thing. I think the power of your questions, it's so important because it leads the guest into different threads of conversations. If you have very surface level questions, yeah, it could be a great podcast, but you're not going to get to the depth and the level in which you can get and have the audience members really invest in. So I think the questions are super, super important. Like spend some time, get intentional, really create questions that can spark conversation and also surprise the guests a little bit with some questions. Like that's okay too, because at the end of the day, you can always say to them, if you want something cut out, we can cut that out. But play a little bit, get a little controversial maybe, or surprise the guest with something. Like that's what leads to excitement in the episode. So yeah, I would say questions is a huge one. And this guy does that really, really well, Zane Lowe.
I love that. Okay, I'm gonna have to check them out. So we're actually gonna surprise you. We're gonna do something a little fun. Speaking of, so I actually was thinking, I was like, it'd be really fun. Obviously, you can talk about like your podcast journey and what you've learned, but because this is my podcast and because I don't mind getting roasted, I actually thought, even though we're only 8 months into this podcast and you've been with us pretty much since the beginning, I thought it would actually be fun for you to kind of roast where we were like 8 months ago, what we did well, what we didn't do well, what we are learning, where we're going. Like, I actually just want to hear from you. Obviously, I can share that too, but I think it would be really interesting because that's a great way for you to showcase how much has evolved in 8 months. And we have so much to go. Like, we're like here in comparison to where I want to be. But I wanted you to actually just roast our podcast and talk about like what we've learned, little things that we've changed so that people can kind of emulate that in their own podcast if they're listening without shitting on anyone else. So I'm giving you permission to shit on Full Plate of Pasta today. So can you talk about like when we started, what did we learn? What did we go through? Just like literally give us the rundown. You won't hurt
Okay.
Because I already know.
No, I
Because
love this.
Know. See, this is a surprise for you. You didn't know this was coming.
Definitely a surprise. And I love this so much because it just goes to show that like just start. It does not need to be perfect. We are still evolving. Like we'll have meetings or we'll talk in Slack and being like, we should do this and we should do that. And this is how we can level up still. So it's an evolution. Just start, get the mic and start recording because you can always change things and evolve and level up. Okay. So I think when we first started, I mean, the camera, the settings were a little bit off. Like the quality wasn't as crisp as it is now.
Yeah.
And the lighting. So one, we got a light and Lexi, shout out to Lexi, helped us with the quality of the video. So that was something that was really good. Also, we did a huge aesthetic brand for the cover photos because in the beginning, there wasn't much of a brand identity. That's something that Ashley and I really worked on together and really loved that. And we're still working on it. There's tweaks that we're making still now to this day. So we're just keep refining it and making sure it's perfect. So there will be just, ups and downs through the whole process. But again, just keep refining. The covers and the brand identity. We did the mic and the lighting. Oh, this is one. This is one that you're a little resistant to. The titles.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, because your titles are so good.
No, talk about this. This is good. This is good. This is good.
They're so good. And I love the titles. They are amazing. But again, as much as we want you to have creative control over your podcast, whoever you are I'm speaking to, and have fun with it and play, there are strategic elements. So the titles can be fun, but they also have to have SEO optimization in them because you want that reach. Like you want searchability for when people are looking things up. You want your podcast to be found. So that was one thing that we're still trying to like create a good balance because we want them to feel like Ashley. Like we want them to feel like you, fun, playful,
Yeah,
out
all my
there.
titles had the word like penis or dick or ass or shit or I mean, which is
Schlong.
fine. Like, it's not the cursing that was the issue. What Caroline's really referred to is every episode. I got shit on this from like two people and but then the same two people were like, "What kind of it makes me want to listen to them?" So I was like, pros and cons. But when we started the podcast, I was like, I want every episode to be so kind of witty and weird, like from a title perspective, that everyone doesn't know what to expect, which is a pro for some people, but also a con for others. But the con outweighed the pro. And so all women want is money and pasta. Like, amazing title, but like, what is that? So you'll see shifts if you go back to our beginning episodes versus now. We've changed up the titles to be a little bit more blatant, specific, direct than they were in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fun ones. I love them, but yeah, it's just like, and there's also a testing period. Like again, I said to Ashley, I'm like, we could change them for 3 months and just see. Like 90 days is a good time to really test something out. So, like
Yeah.
there's always we can go back to some, we can change it, but yeah, it's just testing, refining. I don't know what else. Can you think of anything
Yeah.
else?
I feel like the lighting was a really big one, and brain awareness. I think one of the biggest hurdles people have when they start a podcast, this is one of my fears, is like video production feels very expensive. And so I guess from your perspective, if someone was like, I want to do this the best possible, but also like I am not going to go invest, $1,000 a month in like a studio, or like I'm not gonna have like, this full production team on site. Like, what are like the 2 or 3 investments that people should make? It can be a specific one or just like go invest in lighting or whatever. But what are some of the investments that you feel like people should have that are going to give them the best quality production without literally it being like a $20,000 down payment investment to start a podcast?
So, I mean, I have a friend who has a 1% podcast and it's filmed on her iPhone. So, I mean, there's different ways that you can do it. I do think, with that said, the quality of the video is so important. It's so important. If you're using something like an iPhone, you'll really want to either edit in After Effects, either the coloring or like a blurring of the background, or make sure the settings are in 4K on your iPhone. You can edit in the camera app, saturation and exposure, just making sure it's as crisp and clear as possible, because that quality, like when we're scrolling on Reels or TikTok,
Yeah.
you'll notice like if there's like a shitty quality video, you're more than likely going to swipe because you don't really take it seriously. There's an aspect of taking it seriously. So I think the quality is super, super important. Maybe you don't have enough funds to get a really nice camera. Use your iPhone, but use the tools the iPhone has. So I think number one, that. Number two, this is a podcast. People are listening to you. Get a mic. Or again, if you don't have a really nice one, there are After Effect tools that you can use. You want that audio to feel as crisp as possible. You want them to feel like you're in the room with them. I think that's super important. And again, you don't have to get an expensive mic. Get a USB connector mic off Amazon.
Those little baby ones actually like
Yeah.
kind of work pretty good. Mm-hmm.
And I think those would be my two main ones. Again, I feel like a set, you can really do it anywhere that looks nice. Like most people have a blank white wall in their
Yeah.
house, or even like get a curtain off Amazon for $40, put it behind you. You don't see, but right now I'm in an unfinished basement. Like it's just, but it doesn't look like that. So, like use your resources to the best of your ability. But I think the quality of the camera and the audio is like the most important thing, 100%.
Yeah. For anyone who wants to start a podcast and is nervous about standing out, over saturation, like it's interesting because I think about YouTube and I'm like, people still launch YouTube channels all the freaking time. The way that you do something, that unique lens is the thing that gets you. It doesn't matter if the topic's already like overused, but there are a lot of people starting podcasts. Like, what are some of the things that you feel like if you were going to start a podcast and you want to take this to the top, you wanted to build a brand around it, you wanted it to be big, like what should people be considering? And what are some things that people should do from like a topic branding perspective that would help them stand out in the podcast world?
The first thing I would say is don't look or try and emulate any other podcast, because what's going to make you stand out is being you. No one can do it like you. No one has the thoughts in your brain. No one has the same exact experiences. Even two people growing up in the same family, experiencing the same trauma of the parents getting divorced, those two people will have different perspectives. Those two people will have different choices and actions based on what had happened. So there's no person like you. So I think you need to really lean on you, what feels like you. And for the topics, you want it to have a cohesive theme. So for example, like if you're a personal development podcast, you want people who are listening to get that same flavor every week so they know what to expect. And so that people who resonate with that are getting hits of what they want to hear. So things around personal development, or if you're like a business coach, have topics around that realm of what your audience would be interested in. But again, you can have flexibility in that sort of overarching theme and talk about things that you're passionate about. You're sitting here for however long, 40 minutes. You want to be able to talk for that long. Like when you have something you're not passionate about, like I can talk about what, like fish for maybe 2 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about fishing.
Fish.
Like I don't know anything about fishing,
Caroline's like, I can talk about fish for 2 minutes. Don't have 5 boyfriends. Like, well, your examples are so funny. Like, well, fish.
But like podcasting, I could talk about for hours. Or like vegan, the animal, conspiracy theories, I can talk about these things for hours. But like fishing, no. So like for me, like I really wanted to do a podcast around empowering women and everything in that, because I can talk about that shit forever. Like I'm so passionate about it. So I think when you're starting a podcast, like really think about what you're specifically passionate about, because that's going to translate into the episodes. If you're talking about something you're not interested in, people can feel that and it's going to be boring. It just will.
Yeah.
Because you're not passionate about it.
I think that is such a important like statement though, because it's the same thing with marketing anything. First of all, redundancy, you're going to be redundant. You're going to go over the same things, but the way you do it's going to be a little bit different. Like even if I had another podcast expert on, right? Like you guys are going to talk about things through a completely different lens because you're coming from it from this lens and that person's coming from that lens. Like there really is so many different perspectives. And it's the same reason that some people buy, XYZ mascara, and the one that's pretty much the exact same shit, people are like loyal to forever. Like you just kind of find that thing that you're like, this feels good for me. And so that's the same thing with business owners. Like, yes, someone might be doing it, but you're going to do it differently. I really actually don't believe in like oversaturation. I believe oversaturation only exists if you are literally trying to create a replica of what already is out there because you're thinking like it's worked before, so it's going to work better. The only reason you should bring something to the table is because you say, I could do it differently. And I promise you, if you are an existing living human being, you can do podcasting differently. So if someone was wanting to start a podcast, like literally today, what would be like the 3 things you're like, go do this right now, and then you can go film your first video? Like, what are those like action items that someone needs to go and complete?
I would say really get clear on the intention and the goal of the podcast. Who is it for? What are your values? What's your brand identity? What are these things? You want to go into it knowing who you're speaking to and who you are and what is the intention behind the podcast. If you don't have an intention, it's going to be hard to encapsulate that and really build an audience, a following, even really a vision for the podcast if you're not clear on those things. So the back end is super, super important in figuring out those things. So I'd say that's number 1. Number 2, like I said, get a good audio and video setup. That's super, super important because people are watching you and listening to you every single week. So you want that to look and sound really, really clear and really good. Number 3, I will say, do not launch your podcast unless you have at least 10 episodes in the bank.
So good.
Dude, I guarantee you will get in your head. You will feel nervous. You'll feel like, oh, I released this episode. I'm cringing. You will feel all of these things. You're not used to the consistency of filming all the time. You will get that motivation drop. And so get those 10 episodes in the bank, at least. Try to get, I would say more than that, but at least 10 episodes so that you're consistent. Because again, if you're starting a podcast and you're saying, oh, I'm going to release every Friday, and that Friday comes along and that one listener that you have is like, I'm so excited for Ashley's podcast this Friday, and it doesn't come, you've automatically lost trust. Automatically. That is super, super key.
10 episodes before you launch. That was actually my biggest mistake. So this is my second podcast and no one knows that because I was 4 episodes in and I was like, I fucking hate this shit. Because I launched it so quickly. I only had 2 episodes and then I had to like start going and you get busy. And it's the same thing with the business. Like you can't be like, I'm going to post this day and come up with it. Like it's not going to happen. So God, that's such a good one. 10 episodes before you launch. 1, you're going to also figure out what you like and don't like. You're going to kind of figure out your rhythm. And then the first 2 or 3 that you recorded that you fucking hate, you can drop them off without being like, I have to get them posted because like I need it. Oh my God, that's such a fucking good tip. So intentionality. And then you would say aesthetics, just making sure it's clean, simple. It doesn't have to be crazy. Oh, fucking good. I love it, Caroline. This is so helpful. I honestly feel like a lot of people want to start podcasts, but Same reason they don't start a business. They just feel this like heaviness around it, and they don't feel like clarity. They don't feel like they have enough purpose. They don't have enough of that. So I think this is such an important conversation. Caroline, if anyone wants help with, I know you do so much. You do so much more than podcast editing. Like Caroline's very good at capturing moments in time. Check her out on Instagram, but where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I would say Instagram at Caroline Szustak. It's Szustak.
Tagged on by the Blazer things, all the things.
Tagged on by the
With an
Blazer
extra
things.
treat.
Absolutely.
Tagged on by the
Yes.
Blazer things. You'll see her. You find her and you'll notice how many incredible people she's worked with. Like Lily, Caroline, you're incredible. I have one last question for you. We try to ask all of our guests this. What's one thing that you want to share with our audience that you're indulging on right now that you love? You want to share?
Ooh, good question.
Mine's currently pink drinks. Can we talk about? These are so good. These are so good. So pink drinks is mine. You didn't
Oh
ask
my God,
me, but
yum.
that's what I'm
No,
going
I
to
love
share.
that. I love a pink drink. Honestly, I'm watching Secret Life of Mormon or Mom Talk. I don't know what it's called, but I've been religiously watching that and oh, I'm addicted. Guilty pleasure.
Who's
So good.
your enemy this season? Me?
Okay, you know what? No, I will not say my enemy, but I will say I love Taylor. I love her. She owns who she is, and she's a human. Like, she's showing her life for the world to see. How many of you could do that? All of your messy and your mistakes.
She
Like,
should
not
start
a
a
lot of people.
podcast, actually. If Taylor started a podcast, that girl has such a cult following. People are obsessed with her. But you know why? Because she is straightforward, she speaks her truth, and she does not give a fuck. And if you want to be good in the podcasting world, just have a perspective. Like, it's much better to have people that love you or hate you than have a neutral opinion. And as a podcaster, the people that are being successful, they're coming in hot with their opinions. So I love it. Thank you, Caroline, so much for coming. It was so fun having you.
Thank you.
Love you, girl.
Love you.